could an AI in a completely virtual environment, if it was fed many different modalities of media, like that could be video, text, images, tactile data, do you think it would be able to ground things in a much more amazing way than we do?
It might scale better than we do. I think that cats have proper grounding, right? Mice have proper grounding in some sense. And the world that they ground things in is different than our world because they have different affordances. They are entangled with that world in a slightly different way. And GPT-3 is not grounding its behavior or its output or its models in the same world as we do. The world that it lives in is a world of textual tokens. And the context is a set of tokens, and that the action that it performs using the models that it's grounded in is producing more of these tokens. And you could say that in some sense that's similar to what we do. We have strings that come in. The strings that come in are the patterns on our retina and cochlea and our skin and an proprioception and vestibular system. They're all presented to the brain or the thalamus. So the brain is, in some sense, busy predicting the next set of patterns on the thalamus. And many of the patterns on the thalamus are generated by the brain itself, for instance, by the control architecture, by the motivational system of the brain, and by the attentional system of the brain. And by monitoring those as well, this thing is going to make a model of itself as a control system. Right? This is what our mind is doing. It's learning to observe its own interaction with the world and tell a story about it. And we live inside of that story, right? We are, as conscious agents, we are not in the physical universe. We are inside of that story that the brain generates about itself and the interaction with the world and the world. And there is no reason why a system like GPT-3 with some extensions and real-time behavior should not be able to do that. To make it really interesting, it should have the capacity for online learning. So it should be able to change its behavior in real time and change its models in real time. It should update its entire things in real time. And so if it has attentional learning that happens in real time, that implies that it would be able to reason and learn from the things that it had reasoned about and make these inferences that it performed in any given situation available in future situations. Right? This is an extension that would need to happen to GPT-3 to make it more like us. But the most important thing is it would need to be connected to a universe that is more similar to ours. And it would need to be connected to it in real time. So it's going to predict the next set of patterns based on some kind of real-time input to make it really interesting.
So the virtual reality would have to be rich enough that it's in, or it would just have to have sensors and actuators connected to the real world like we are.
Yeah, but for us, the crucial thing is not so much that our sensors and actuators are connected to the real world, but that they work on our mental simulations. And the mental simulations are connected and tracking the things that happen in the real world. Right? You start out with a system that has some simple cybernetic control. And this system already pretty much knows how to walk and how to grasp and how to fixate things. And it's learned that with relatively simple learning functions that are hard-coded in the brain. Training functions that are built into the brain. And once the basic training has kicked in, you have an attention agent that lives inside of the system and observes all the underlying structures and learns what to relate to what to improve the behavior of the system. And the protocol of this attention agent is what we perceive as our own conscious contents. Right, it's this attentional protocol. Whatever captures our attention, what gets in the focus of the attentional system, might enter a protocol memory, and that includes the activity of the attentional system itself. So, for instance, in order to pay attention, we need to check back on the fact that we are currently paying attention and just not drifting off in some kind of trance where we think that we are paying attention, but we actually have fallen asleep already. Into this property that we go back and check, have I fallen asleep or am I still paying attention? Am I still tracking a consistent reality? Is necessary for the type of attention that we have. And that makes our attention reflexive. And it's very tempting to think about what would a system look like that is producing general embeddings and acts in real time on an agent that can improve its performance based on the models that the system distills.